Welcome back, horror fans, for the first episode of Season 2 of the Week in Horror podcast. This week, we're covering September 27th through October 3rd. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Eugene, and with me always is Alex and JL.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going, horror fans?
I can't believe this is Season 2.
Season 2, oh my god.
And that's not, hold on, because this is something we have talked about Season 2 for so long now, and it's not just Season 2, but the start of the second year that we have started this, because people do like 2 seasons in a year. We have done, our Season 1 was 1 full year, and we're going on to year number 2. And this all started with just like, JL, hey, you guys want to like talk about horror movies? And we're like, yeah. And then we started making this thing and started putting it out there, and now we're here. 2 years. Number 2. Let's go.
Finally, we could do it number 2.
No. Remember when this whole thing started and we're like, fuck, man, this we're terrible at this. This is not okay. Hey, we might not be any better, but hey, the fucking people are listening, so that's pretty cool.
Yes, I actually just to reminisce, I went back and I looked at some of our old scripts when we first got started. I can't understand what I'm looking at. It's like I was like, what kind of fucking format was I writing here?
You seriously, you would put stuff, you'd just be like, this movie, this, that, this, and it was like, what do you mean by that? Like, so that's probably what we did. We looked at it and we're like, all right, we interpreted this in completely different ways, and it was terrible. And then we kind of like talked it out, but we talked it out. We kept going, and then we were like, okay, cool. We should structure it like this. This makes sense. Let's try it. All right, well that fucking failed, so let's try something else. And, I mean, it mostly it's been a fucking ride, but we stuck with it, and so it's like, it's cool. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at an old script from like an original episode, and yeah, you're right. What the fuck were we talking about?
Yeah, I have no fucking clue. It literally just looks like a list of movies. It's just like, I guess we'll talk about these ones, and I don't know. But it was like, because now we have this really nice format where we have our cues in, and we have the points that we talk about, and everything is all scripted out really nicely. And it took us a few times to get into that, but I was looking at that old stuff. I was like, I literally wrote like a list of films and the dates they released, and that was it. There was no intro. There was nothing. There's no cue points like that. We were just talking over each other, and there'd be these big, huge gaps where we're just like, are you speaking or am I speaking? So it took us a while to get into the groove, but man, we're in the groove now.
Hey, it's working.
It's working, and I greatly appreciate the fans who especially came in on those first couple of episodes and really stuck through. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. But hey, we're here to talk about horror movies, so let's get to that. JL, what do we got up first tonight? Season 2, ready, set, go.
Yes, for the first episode of Season 2, we're going to kick this one off with a TV series. Because we don't do a lot of TV series on this show, but this one came along, and I've been looking forward big time to talking about it. And I'm talking about Friday the 13th, the series. Debuted September 28th, 1987. Oh my god, I was 7 fucking years old. Jesus.
Yeah. How old were you, Alex?
-3 years old.
He was a twinkle in his daddy's sack.
I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's balls.
Oh, so wild. So, yes, Friday the 13th, the series. So, created by Frank Mancuso Jr. and Larry B. Williams, and multiple directors across, just as any television series. But the primary director was David Winning, and starred John D. LeMay, Louise Roby, Steve Monarch, and Chris Wiggins. The general premise of the show, for anybody who has not seen it, the show lasted 3 seasons, and it follows a group of individuals who work in a curio shop, in a little kind of antique shop, who run around and hunt down the cursed items that were basically escaped from the shop and got out into the world. And so they run around chasing down these cursed items, collecting them and bringing them back to the vault. If that sounds very familiar, yes, Warehouse 13 did take this idea even further, and they kind of did the whole Raiders of the Lost Ark idea with that one. But it's kind of the same premise. But this is with cursed items that really straight up murder people, because this was a horror show. But really fantastic. The thing that always boggled my mind, because obviously the name, Friday the 13th, the series. Now, I knew it drew a lot of people in, but this is a Friday the 13th, and there is no Jason Voorhees.
What?
Dun dun dun!
Shockingly.
What a twist.
What a twist!
So the show wasn't even originally supposed to be tied into the Friday the 13th franchise. The original title of the show was called The 13th Hour. And so it was the same premise and all this other kind of stuff. And the title ended up switching over because it just had that franchise appeal to it, because they figured slapping Friday the 13th onto it would go, oh, well, I like the movies, let me go ahead and click. And then people, though it is a great show, but then people can get disappointed in the fact that there is no Jason. Now, they wanted to try working in a couple of ideas, like one of the things being like Jason's mask, to bring back into the collection for artifacts that they're looking for. But yeah, it was never ever intended to actually be any tied to Friday the 13th. That's why there is no Jason, like, at all. It was think of it much like the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Yeah, when they wanted to do kind of the anthology thing with the franchise, and it didn't pan out.
Yeah, and yeah, that one, people are disappointed because there's no Michael Myers in that one. This one, it was like, well, we wanted to create it with this, and then they ended up importing the name later on.
Just wondering how that went down. Like, what was the conversation? We should call it this. We shouldn't call it that. No, we're just gonna have to call it this. It's gonna work. I promise. We really shouldn't call it that.
Mancuso Jr. Frank Mancuso Jr. was the lead producer on this show. He was the executive producer of the show and the lead producer, and he created it originally because he took the Friday the 13th name because he was the producer on I think on all the Fridays from 2 all the way to Jason Takes Manhattan. So for 6 Friday the 13th films, he was the producer on that, and he knew how hot those were. So it may have been a gamble. The 13th Hour, that to me that sounds kind of like a video game. Really, it doesn't sound like a TV series that would draw people in. And I think he was right on that. And I think it works out because the show is actually quite good. I really enjoyed the show. And even so, it's like, oh, Friday the 13th. Oh, there's no Jason. Oh, wait, this actually is a pretty damn well crafted series.
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible.
Well, you got, John D. LeMay in there, like in the first season. Is that the first season? Yeah. He was like, I don't know, this whole thing with this. I went back and we watched a couple of the episodes from season 3, but I haven't seen this since, I couldn't remember. There was 23 episodes in the first season. So I was like, fuck, man, there was a lot of these episodes. And I think I saw all the way through season 2. I hadn't seen season 3. But it just gets progressively better. It's a good story. It's like, but it's like you expect one thing and it's totally different. It's great though.
See, it's funny because you mentioned John D. LeMay, and John LeMay was because Frank Mancuso produced 2 through 8. Friday the 13th, the films, and then he produced this show and he gave it the title, starring John D. LeMay, who in turn was in Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell, yeah. The final Friday, which was not produced by Mancuso.
It was cool to see that whole thing. So you're still expecting like, oh wait, but he's in the other movies, and then nothing ever becomes of it. You're like, all right, fine. I'll continue to watch all 23 episodes of your first season and the entire second season.
And then they ended up having, because there is a third season of it, and it was cut short because it had a sudden cancellation. So the series just kind of ends. It doesn't really have like a kind of a sort of closure where a lot of series finales has kind of a wrap up. It's just kind of well, this is it. But it's a really great show, and it's able to explore a lot of different elements of horror because it isn't just a slasher. You can pull into like some supernatural stuff. You get some psychological stuff that it plays into. So it's a great series to watch.
It's good, and even despite the fact that because they received the news that they were going to be canceled while they were in the middle of filming the 20th episode, and both season 1 and season 2 had 26 episodes each. And when they got word of that, they realized, oh, they'd been canceled, and the 20th episode became the series finale. And so they were like rushed to try and tie up all these loose ends and try to give at least some kind of closure. But unfortunately, what can you do when you're halfway through shooting? And typically shows like this, they take about a week to shoot. So when you're like 3 days in and half your episode is already shot, then your writers are already scrambling trying to come up with some kind of closure, try to end this thing, and then you're looking at reshoots and everything is just crushed. But it was a shame that it came so quickly, because this bad boy was only produced on a budget less than $500,000 per episode, and it placed second in its demographic, just behind Star Trek TNG.
Which is okay. I didn't know that. That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
So it was there. Yeah, it was there.
See,
it's so weird. It's like I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh no, I always wonder what happened, and maybe there's something behind the scenes. Whenever a successful show is canceled, especially suddenly canceled, like you take say like Angel for example, usually that means there's something behind the scenes that we probably don't know about. We don't.
Entirely possible. Yeah, because there were issues between I think it was WB and Joss Whedon.
It's always that motherfucker.
Yeah, and Joss Whedon that led to Angel not getting renewed for season 6. And so they had to rush and kind of like wrap up season 5 and with that big climactic battle at the end. There was some crazy shit that went down on Buffy as well, because Buffy got hit, and if Sarah Michelle Gellar was not interested in pursuing it, and so WB sold the show to UPN, and UPN like held her to a contract, saying if you quit the show, we're going to sue your ass. So she that's how she got in, was in the last 2 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But it harkens to like Firefly. Like a total
I was going to mention Firefly.
Yeah, not just issues between the studio and the director, but just a mishandling of the show. It's kind of like you don't know what you have, because in hindsight, it's excellent. It's really, really good. But I also kind of lump this in with the show Forever Night.
Oh, yeah, the vampire show, yeah.
Yeah, so Forever Night had 3 seasons as well. And that show, in my opinion, was way ahead of its time. For storytelling, for writing, for acting, everything was solid across the board in that show. And they always had very compelling storylines. And and then of course, the character Lacroix, one of the greatest vampires I've seen on television, like ever. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're gone 3 seasons later, and all of a sudden it's done. It's kind of like the studio didn't know what they had, and they didn't know what to do with it. It's like this show is kind of like so... I'm at a loss for words to describe it. But maybe the show is just way too ahead of its time, and they don't know how to market it in the current environment that it's in. So ultimately, they just have to get rid of it, and piss off the huge fan bases, just like what happened with Firefly and the Browncoats.
Yeah, because if you look at TV show, I guess we'll talk about some shows being canceled a little early, just a little bit. But the show Freaks and Geeks, well, when that came out,
one season.
Yeah, we had 1 season, and it came out I think 1999. And at that time, you had reality shows, and you had the 3-camera sitcoms, things like Friends. So when you get Freaks and Geeks wasn't funny enough to be a comedy, but it wasn't serious enough to be a drama. And so it got left in this limbo, and they didn't really know what to do with it. And that's what happens when you're ahead of its time, because despite they didn't know how to market it, you take the show Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks is one that has some of the most real characters I've ever seen on television. But that's how life is. Life isn't always funny, and it isn't always dramatic, and it showcased this realism, but NBC didn't know what to do.
You know who watches Freaks and Geeks? The same people that watch Community.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same. the same vibe.
Yeah, that broke my heart because there was not an actor in that was not on point every single episode. And the same thing goes for Friday the 13th, the series. There was a chemistry between the leads, and you have the old man running the shop, and then the young guy and the girl. And I'm just saying guy girl like this, but
guy girl guy.
Yeah. So what was the guy's name? Mickey. Okay, Mickey is the girl, and her cousin is Ryan, and those are the two young kids. And then they hook up with Jack Marshak, who is running the curio shop, and they kind of get embroiled in the first case after Vendretti's cursed objects make it out into the world. And so they kind of get embroiled in, and they decide that they want to stay on with the shop and try to get these cursed objects in so more people don't die. Because one thing that was awesome about this show is that this show did not pull punches. It typically, a person would come across a cursed object that kind of fit, because cursed objects also kind of think of like the Ring of Sauron. They look for someone who can use them, and they typically wind up in the hands of someone who can make use of them. Like a boxer will find the cursed boxing gloves, or someone will find
find a scalpel, cursed scalpel.
Yeah, there you go, like a cursed scalpel that every surgery comes out awesome, but every time it grants some sort of ability or wish or power to its user, it takes that power, it takes the life force of another person. So someone else has to die every time they use the object. So like the cursed pen will get, you'll be able to write anything and it's amazing, but someone else is going to die. Or sometimes you have to murder someone to make it work. So you have to sacrifice a person to make the object work. Those were the most brutal ones. Because some of the kills were rather graphic for television, which obviously piqued my interest.
Yeah, no, that's you're talking about because like you said, there's like episodes that are like very structured, but like there's a few of them that like went off script kind of a little bit, and I thought that was cool too, that they threw stuff in there that was like, it was like, okay, cool, they're not like gonna find a cursed object this time, and then then they do. It's super cool. And I was just watching, like I told you, I was going back and rewatching some of these, and I was like, there's so many episodes that I had forgot about, and I'd start like reminiscing in them, and I was like, okay, cool, now I'm gonna have to like start this whole thing over after we do the podcast and just get like a straight binge of the whole three seasons. But I stopped on an episode that I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one, and rewatched it. It was the Scarecrow episode.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah. So I watched that one, and I was like, yep. I think I could call that my favorite episode so far, since I haven't seen 3. But did you know the guy that played the Scarecrow in that, Ted Hanlon, was like, did stunts on stuff like Shoot 'Em Up and like big movies like Tommy Boy and Billy Madison. And so like he was like already known for like these other movies, or no, these actually, most of those came after this, but he went on to do a whole bunch of really cool stuff too.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because I was actually going through and just kind of watching just a couple of select ones that I just remembered, because it's really easy to find a lot of them. And because I ended up rewatching, it was And Now in the News with the radio.
Oh yes.
Where it like scares listeners to death on it. And I mean, even I love it even when they first bring it out and it just starts like broadcasting, because it takes place in an insane asylum, and it starts broadcasting even though, despite the fact it's not even plugged in. Ooh, kind of thing on it. But I mean, the fact that they had a limited budget and you're doing 40-minute episodes, it's impressive. It really is. I mean, it's a great series to check out.
Joe, what was your favorite episode?
Oh, there's a bunch. My favorite episodes
My
are
first
in
one is
our
13. My first second one.
No, my favorite ones are all of my favorite ones are, except for the season finale and 2. Season finale and 2 was fantastic. My absolute favorite ones are in season 1, and it's actually kind of a tie. Or I say the second one is very, very close. There was the episode, if I try to remember the name of it. You know what? I'm just gonna look. I'm just gonna look it up. Oh yes, Shadow Boxer. Shadow Boxer was the one because for two reasons. One, the tale of the boxer, utilizing the gloves in order to get, because he would fight and he was kind of down on his luck. He was was a bit punch drunk. He's broken down and he's trying to get this is his last shot at redemption, and he's to go for the title. And when he puts the gloves on and uses them, he wins, but his shadow comes to life and commits the murder. So his shadow will actually beat someone to death somewhere else while he is in the ring, utilizing the power from that sacrifice to basically beat his opponents. And I love this one.
This guy's ass. Shadow's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
And I dug this one because the villain, Tommy Dunn, his fate is left unknown. He's one of the very few bad guys in the episode. Well, number one, he's a sympathetic bad guy, and I love that a lot about a lot of these villains. They're highly sympathetic. They weren't just like outright villains, but many of them driven by revenge or driven by a desire for justice or driven by desperation. They were all very, very human. And Tommy, his fate is left unknown. We don't know because typically the owner ends up dying towards the end of the episode for using the gloves. And because eventually the cursed object will turn on them, but it didn't happen with Tommy. And I'm very, very curious, what the writers might have intended of that, because he's one of the few villains that got away. The close second on that one was an episode that was the episode Faith Healer, which was directed by David Cronenberg. And I'm a huge, he was the Faith Healer that acquires real healing powers through a special glove. Sforza glove that allows him to legitimately heal people, but it steals the life force from another person.
Oof, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, and kills that one. It was the only episode directed by David Cronenberg, which, being one of my favorite directors, you can see his style is all over it. For anyone who loves Cronenberg, definitely check out those ones. What about you, Eugene? What's your fave?
My favorite, I do like the radio one, and then I like the Prophecies. The 2-parter in season 3.
Nope, haven't made it that far yet.
Oh, so
oh, I know what you're talking about. I was just waiting for you to hear more.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting to hear more.
Oh, I just heard silence. Like, yeah, the Prophecies, where it actually talks about, it's like the books of Lucifer. If I can talk right now, the box of Lucifer, the box of kind of thing, and
the devil.
Yeah, the devil, directed by Tom. Oh my God, why did I start saying a name? Tom McLaughlin?
Yeah, sure. Close enough.
Yeah, close enough on it. So just because it starts tying the kind of the religious aspects of it, when you have the main guy, he ended up traveling over to start investigating things about the Antichrist. And so stuff like that has always kind of fascinated me.
They had some really good ones because, especially centered around the devil and stuff like that, because the whole thing starts because the original owner of the Cursed Antiques made a deal with the devil. And when he betrayed the devil killed him and took his soul. And because he was the owner of the curio shop, and when he dies, that's when he dies, the inheritor, which is actually Mickey in the show, because she's his niece. She basically says, "What am I going to do with this antique shop? Well, fuck it, sell it all off." And she just starts selling everything in the shop, which is how the cursed objects get out into the world.
It's little what they know.
We lost another one. It's out there somewhere. Go find it. Guess what? You're gonna fucking get fucked up. Just keep moving forward. That movie, it's like a series about 2020. There's a bunch of cursed objects all over the world.
You wouldn't even surprise me at this point.
Yeah. Good series, though. I think I'm gonna have to go back and
definitely. It's a lot of fun. All right. Well, that brings it up to the audience. What are your guys' favorite episodes? I'm very, very curious. If you have seen the show, or if you've seen all 3 seasons, we'd love to know what your favorite episode of Friday the 13th, the series is. Let us know in the comments below, or shoot us an email at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Eugene, what do we have next?
All right, moving from a TV show over to a movie that was released October 1st, 2010, is the movie Steakland, directed by...
That's my dad's birthday, sorry. Yeah, happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday.
Love you.
Directed by Jim Meikle, and it stars Nick Domcini, Connor...
Nick D'Amici.
Nick D'Amici, Connor Palo, Michael Servetus, and Sean Nelson.
And also, it's got to be said, Kelly McGillis made a triumphant return to acting in this one, and Scream Queen Danielle Harris was also in this.
Yes, which I love Danielle Harris in it. And basically,
I love Danielle Harris in anything.
The legend Scream Queen. And
yes, the less the better.
I was waiting for you to say or nothing.
I was about to say, I love her in anything. The less the better.
And basically what ends up
Stop it, JL. She's married.
Stop it. Calm down. Take a cold shower. And so basically a plague ends up going through the country and is turning people into vampires. And you have a group that basically have to cross country and search for like a place that they can be safe, like a safe haven kind of thing. And I kind of saw this as a response to The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead was real new at the time, and The Walking Dead came out like in 2009. In it, and so it's kind of a transfer. Instead of having zombies, you have vampires, and it's them on the road trying to survive against vampires. And I really enjoyed it because first of all, I like post-apocalyptic films.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I do. It's one of my guilty pleasures on it.
Ooh, so guilty.
It is so guilty on it, but it actually doesn't follow a lot of the apocalyptic tropes.
What? Like, not at all.
Yeah, like not at all.
No, it's pretty cool.
That didn't sound scripted at all.
No, it did not, Eugene. It sounded.
That's right, man. Speaking of which,
we should talk about this subject now. See, it's so much better without a script. Anyways, this movie was fucking cool because it sucked you in the first 10 minutes, and it was like, this is not going to be the same thing we've been watching over and over again for the last 10 fucking years. So it was like, cool, let's go. And then you get into it, and it's like, this is the whole, like, traveling with them. They're like trying to go to fucking Canada. Like, what is going on here? It's like, it's different than anything else because it's not all just like fucking sparkly vampires and shit. It's more focuses on like the surviving through it than it really does on like the scary parts. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's different than anything I've ever seen. I just watched this for the first time yesterday.
And see, that's always been the thing about apocalyptic films is apocalyptic films showcase the human condition and the human connection. It's not as much about the actually apocalyptic event that happens. All the event does is bring these traits out of characters, and then it says something about who people are because society's gone at that point.
Oh yeah, there's typically you in your post-apocalyptic films, and I think the biggest one that sticks with me is The Road, with Viggo Mortensen and Cody Smith-McPhee and Charlize Theron. There is and Robert Duvall was in there too, and Garrett Dillahunt. But anyhow, it's one of my favorite ones because it's very, very bleak and very, very dark. But typically in your apocalyptic films, like Book of Eli, something like this, you have singular color palettes, typically gray or sepia or something very, very dirty. So you have these very dirty, unremittingly gray color palettes, across the board to kind of like give you that dark feel. And then the focus typically on conflict between people is that people are fighting for, the last vestiges of their humanity and trying to survive by any means necessary. So you get a lot of conflict, you get a lot of action, people fighting each other, just the dregs of humanity, just the worst that we could be because it's the end of the world. And I know Demichi and Mikkel.
You got it there, bud?
Yeah, Nick Demichi. Nick Demichi and Mikkel wanted to, they wanted to have happy moments. They wanted to show human cooperation. They wanted to showcase the apocalypse not being the end of humanity, but an opportunity for humanity to thrive and show people thriving, working together, teaching each other. And people weren't just like, fuck you, every man for himself. They weren't interested in that. And they bucked the entire apocalypse. Yes, it is the apocalypse, but people are still functioning. It's not all completely grayed out. The land is as it was, just there's less people in it. And people do have to fight for survival, but they're willing to work together because the odds are better in greater numbers. So there are communities. There's still bad people out there. Number one, there's fucking vampires out there, but there's also, people who've gone cannibal. There's roving gangs but moreover, our protagonists work together. They teach each other, and they're working together towards a common goal, which is really, really cool. And it is
so
typically
human too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so.
Like, they're very, very human through the whole thing, and it's like even like when what's his face, cowboy dude, has to like kill people. Like he feels bad about it, and it's like they're surviving, but it's like it's the human side of it. What would you do in that situation? Probably what these people did in this movie. Like, it's so relatable. That's the word I was looking for. It's like
I really dug one of the aspects I really dug were the religious extremists that pop up in the wake of the apocalypse. And I dug out because it was specifically done that it was specifically portrayed these religious extremists to show that their toxic effect on society, that was a deliberate choice, and one that I heartily agree with, because in the event of the breakdown of the social structure and the loss of your basic creature comforts, the worst of people will come out, and the worst of the worst would be religious fanatics who will try to twist the events and twist certain situations to their own advantage, to their faithful advantage. And I really, really dug that. That was really, really, I don't think it was a really important part of the film, was the religious fanatics were as dangerous as the fucking vampires and how they viewed them. Of course, the vampires in this were particularly nasty. So
yeah, agreed. I like to actually showcase people working together, and you can see different elements, because to survive, we have to work together. And even as a species, that's one of our key things, is the fact that we're able to will and work together. And I like how it does showcase that some. The characters are relatable, and a key to any film you want to be successful is have relatable characters. Have them where you're like, I can see myself being like that person. I can understand the motive behind that. You can tell he has to kill that person to survive, but he doesn't want to, which is the way the majority of the people would feel in that situation.
It's so wild, because the way we've described it here, Steakland does not come off like a horror film. It almost doesn't sound like a horror film. It definitely doesn't sound like an apocalypse film, and it certainly doesn't sound like a horror film at all, because a lot of the tropes, a lot of the typical horror tropes of this movie, like, the monsters and the vampire plague and the bloodletting and, people dying all over the place, despite the fact that these are vampires, Demichi and Mikkel wanted to emphasize more than just that. They wanted to make a film that could work without the horror elements, with stylized action sequences and, bloody combat between humans and vampires, chopping motherfuckers' heads off and blood going all over the place and just kind of chaos. They avoided all of that. So while there is violence in the film, and people do die because these are vampires and they're eating people, and the religious fanatics are a constant threat all over the place. The focus, I love that the focus was on the man and the boy. And Nick D'Amici was Mister, because the boy calls him Mister, and the boy's name was Martin. And the relationship between Mister and Martin starts off antagonistically, like a father who doesn't want the responsibility, but you can still tell he connects in that way. And as he kind of imparting his knowledge, because eventually comes to the realization that he's not going to live forever, and this kid is is a good kid, and he's got a good heart, and he's smart. And he's got a goal, and he's trying to go forward. And he kind of starts imparting his knowledge into kind of like a father-son relationship. And the focus was on that and their effect on the people around them. So it is more a human tale in a horror setting than it is a horror film where the monsters are just released on the people.
And that's exactly why this film stands out. And so definitely go check it out. There's actually a sequel also.
Yes.
Steakland. Now, I have not seen the sequel. I do want to check it out though.
The sequel's actually pretty good, and it actually deals with because you remember at the end of the movie the two of them split up.
Mm-hmm.
The kid is able to survive on his own at this point. He's got to the point where he's a survivor, and so Nick D'Amici feels that he's just going to be holding this kid back if he just hangs around too long. So he wakes up one morning and Mister is gone. And then the sequel actually winds up the two of them coming back together because they wind up in this giant community, and that is bustling. It's really, really cool, the dynamics within that. And there's a new vampire threat, just like there was the priest that got turned in the first film that became like this fanatical psycho, and now there's a new threat. And they basically, Mister and Martin wind up at the community just about the same time that this new vampire threat is planning on launching a straight up attack at the community to finally take it down, and how they deal with that. And there's all kinds of cool stuff, actors that you'll recognize popping in there, and just lots of really, really cool stuff that I really enjoyed.
Okay, then yeah, I definitely want to check out the sequel.
It sounds pretty good.
It does. But so you have Steakland, you have Steakland 2, and this is actually something that I like to ask the audience. Do you think there should be a third one? Should there actually be a trilogy that can maybe wrap up everything? So,
considering
I have to see 2 before.
Considering it's Steakland 2 came out October 15th in 2016. So it's only 4 years ago. Not even 4 years ago. So I think a third one could definitely be in the works. As long as D'Amici, because Nick D'Amici was the driving force behind this. Him and Mikkel were the driving forces because they worked together on Mulberry Street, which was an excellent, I would say, mutant rat horror film that takes place in New York. Is really fucking good. Because the focus is not really on the monsters. The focus, once again, is on the people being besieged by the monsters. And Nick D'Amici is just an underrated actor. People need to be aware of this dude. He's absolutely cool. I love him in Late Phases. Late Phase is one of my favorite werewolf films. But it's been less than 4 years. We could definitely see a third one. I think we need to. I think wrapping up Mister's arc and wrapping up Martin's arc would be fantastic.
Just to see that. So yeah, definitely let us know. Shoot us an email at weekendhorror@gmail.com and let us know what you think about third Steakland. Alex, what do we got next?
Yo, let's get weird. We're going to talk about Strangeland, October 2nd, 1998. Directed by John Pipelo. Written by Dee Snider, starring Kevin Gage, Elizabeth Pena, and Dee Snider.
Don't forget, someone else is in this too.
Robert Englund.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You can't forget Robert Englund.
Because if you want to give your bad guy credibility, you gotta cast a horror icon.
Yeah, you gotta put him in there. But then also, even Amy Smart is in it, so it's it's pretty solid, all around cast. But this. It follows a detective that's looking for this guy that's luring people in off of the internet through chat sites. This coming out 1998. What did we have back in 98? What were the?
I think AIM, probably.
Did we even have 8am back then?
1998. I was no, I was 18.
Yeah, like Yahoo Messenger, something like that. Yeah, Yahoo Messenger, chat rooms, that kind of thing.
Was that like a thing? I don't know. I was only 8 years old.
Well, see, I was 18. So 1998. I think that was I think that was like the peak of. No, it may have been the tail end of America Online.
It's just like, it was just all chat rooms.
Yeah.
You like just type in some weird fucking link and talk to random strangers on the internet. And so in this one, it was like this 15-year-old girl found this guy called Captain Howdy. And so like these two girls like decided to go to this party, and it just goes fucking shit south. And this dude is twisted as fuck. Captain Howdy, like the whole like, because he was a psychiatric patient, but only for like a few months. And like when he takes his medicine, he's like super chill. And he's like nice, and then like he doesn't, and he turns into this crazy person that is obsessed with body modifications and fucking tortures people. And
we'd say he's obsessed with the clarity that comes with pain.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with the pain, yes. But yeah, it was. I mean, like he tortured these fucking people, killed the fuck out of them. It was. I remember seeing this, and I was like, when you were talking about this, it's like, yes, I get to go watch it again. Because it's so weird that it's like I feel guilty watching it almost. Because D. Snyder is just insane. But
yeah, I caught this. It was on like Showtime. Like say it was like maybe 99 or 2000 after it came out. And it was one of those like it only came on like at like 1 a.m. or something like that. So I was like, oh, okay, well let me just click on this and see what it is. And I think I was probably like 14 or something like that, because I'm like age-wise, I'm in between both of y'all. And I was like, what am I watching? What the fuck is this? But it held my attention the entire time.
It doesn't stop being insane.
It's the thing that got me was obviously D. Snyder. Now, those who know D. Snyder, frontman and lead singer songwriter of Twisted Sister. So he's got an image about himself. He's got the big blonde hair, and we're not gonna take it. Just legendary rock god. But this is such Captain Howdy is such a divisive turn for him. It's so different. And the depiction of the character. And one thing I really, really dug was, you could throw a rock star in a horror film, and you could run it based on the name alone. But this thing, written by D. Snyder, the man did his homework in this. He kind of blew my mind. And the intelligence of the film harkens back to when I saw a video of him speaking before Congress. Very, very eloquently. The guy is on fucking point. A brilliant dude, and it comes out in this movie. It is unsuspectingly smart. You do not expect a movie about an online predator that kidnaps people and then tortures them by giving them piercings and doing stuff to them, because he doesn't actually kill anyone. No, intentionally.
Yeah,
because that's the whole thing. And I don't want to spoil too much about the movie, but. That's not his intention. His intention is to spread clarity through pain, through the body, the pain of body modification, or, what was he was talking about doing when he was doing the sun salute, with the piercings, with his piercings in his chest.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The fucking,
the sun ceremony. Yeah. Wild shit like that. And there's a deep psychology to the film, which I thought which is just you don't expect it, especially given the image of the visual terror of Captain Howdy.
And this was something that really that caught my attention, because he really gives Captain Howdy. It's like this. It's the villain who he believes what he believes. There's no way that you can persuade him. He's stuck on that. You can't reason with him, anything like that. And adding all the piercings, all the body modifications, the fact that he isn't into, I'm just going to kill people for the straight up killing people. He wants to go and he wants to show pain to clear your mind. And it's interesting because a lot of cultures actually do things like that.
Yeah, there's there's an individual, a Fakir Musafar, who is a leading figure in the modern primitive subculture, which is which is tied very, very deeply into this film, because Captain Howdy's philosophy, in fact, a lot of his quotes are either direct quotes or paraphrases of Fakir Musafar's teachings, and you can see it, all over his body. Just, it's so shocking when you see him.
It is, because he looks like the parent's worst nightmare, because you got to think about at that you have to think about at that time, this is before social media, for those, so the people who haven't seen it, and for our younger listeners, there is no social media, there is no Facebook, there is no MySpace, there's no any of that was going on at that time. So you had chat rooms, and you would click onto a chat room, and you would people would be in there, and you could interact with them, and you never know who was on the other side of that. And this is
okay. Hold on though, but do you guys remember like chat roulette?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like I never really like participated in that at all ever. Like, maybe went on there once and I got like scared because I was like, no, this is weird, and left. But there was like people that would spend all day on this chat roulette, just like going around and like sharing video of themselves with other people, and they would like talk. And it's like, you couldn't fucking do that nowadays. So like,
no, it's nothing but penises today.
Right, but like watching this movie, like because I was born in 1990, I was born like right before the internet became available to everybody, and so I grew up with people getting used to it. So I got used to it, and that was like a part of my life. But even now, it's like it's surpassed. I can't keep up with a lot of this stuff. Like, and then we had to do this online schooling stuff. It was like, man, these kids are farther into this stuff than we were. Like in like 5th, 6th grade, we were still taking like typing classes on Word, and now these kids are like, yeah, check out this fucking iPad Pro 16, 92-inch fucking wha-bam, I'm connected to the entire fucking world, and it's terrifying. So it's like, just having to go back and watch this and be like, man, that wasn't even that long ago that it was like you could just go into a chat room. And this movie was cool because like it was ahead of its time, and it was ahead of its time because we're at a point where everybody knew we were going to be, but we still continued to go on with it, which is terrifying. Because it's like, somebody's going to get in here, it's going to be bad, they're going to get kidnapped, and then like that happens all the time now. So it's like,
yeah,
it was like okay, this is going to happen, and it did, and we still just were like, yeah, let's make TikToks.
Let's do TikTok.
I think it's wild. From a makeup and special effects standpoint, the process that Dee Snider had to go through to become Captain Howdy.
He was so cool.
Because he was in that makeup chair for multiple hours a day, and all of his tattoos and the branding and the scarification and the fact that his teeth were filed down and all of his body piercings. The massive hoops in his ears, his eyebrows, his lips, his nose. And then the chest and back modifications, all of the piercings that he had, were all fake, except for he actually got his septum pierced for this.
Yes,
which is wild. Now, in the movie, Captain Howdy has a 00 gauge septum piercing, which is fucking enormous. I think it's about the diameter. I think it's the diameter of my little finger. You imagine that hole that size going through your septum. So Captain Howdy is a 00 gauge through his septum, but he actually when he got his septum pierced, he had a standard 14 gauge, but they made a special piece of jewelry to connect to his actual piercing to make it look like he had a 00. Just wild stuff, but. The fact that he went through that, and then the visual imagery of Captain Howdy, and then the philosophy that he speaks is incredibly wild, because it really is that cognitive dissonance, and it thrusts it upon you the notion that this intelligence, that this level of intelligence, this level of introspection could come out of someone who looks like this. And obviously in the late 90s, this was not something that people were used to the look of Captain Howdy would shock people then, doesn't really shock people now, because there are people on the internet that are more extreme than there are people on the internet more extreme than him.
Well, yeah, and all the tattoos on his face and stuff, that's just normal shit on the internet now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you think at that time, I mean, the first time seeing him, it's shocking. And you're right, the fact that he's articulate and that he's intelligent. And then it surprises you because he chose to look that way. Because you think about he chose to get all those piercings, all those tattoos to basically showcase his philosophy and the fact that he wants to spread his philosophy to other people. To me, he's a highly underrated horror villain.
Oh yeah. And most people, I've never heard a lot of people point out. In fact, I know people probably made the connection. I've never heard anybody talk about it, the kind of Clockwork Orange twist in this, because he does eventually get captured, and he winds up going to the mental institution, to the psychiatric facility where he is medicated, and he comes out. All of a sudden he comes out. All the piercings are taken out, and he looks, and all makeup is covering up all of his tattoos. And there's a kind of a Clockwork Orange twist, a very Kubrickian twist in there, because he's rehabilitated, he's medicated now, he understands what he did, and he's released because the homicide was accidental, and under the circumstances he was incarcerated in a mental institution, and then sometime later he was eventually released, and he's rehabilitated, he's dressing normally, he's on his meds, but the town won't let him kind of get away with it. They won't let him live it down. And so, just like in Clockwork Orange, Alex was pushed back. He wasn't really cured. He was brainwashed into thinking, or conditioned to be good, but the world wouldn't let him change, despite how repulsed the world is by him, which is a very crazy dichotomy that's very realistic, and I thought played really well.
Don't say jail. No way. They won't let it go. It's become a problem.
Well, they demand that you change, and then they demand that you change because of your behavior, and then you do change, and then they won't let you forget your behavior, and they still want to punish you for it. So it really it's not about the image; it's about their fear.
It really is. Because I mean, you look at people today doing crimes, and then they go to prison, they do their time, and they get back, they release to society, quote unquote, rehabilitated, and then you look at their lack of options. They look not being able to go back to their family. Once you're a felon, most places won't hire you, and then places that are felon friendly usually pay super low, and it's going to be a super shitty job, and you have no options.
Strangeland has to be one of the smartest horror films I've ever seen. It's definitely up there in the top 3, just because not only is it a horror film, and it has some really crazy shit. Obviously, D. Snyder spouting the fakir's words all over the place, and doing this shit to these captive kids that he's kidnapped, is really, really wild. But it really is an indictment of, even if it's just D. Snyder's opinion, it's an indictment of the hypocrisy of suburbia, or I would say maybe even the hypocrisy of the middle class society, or society in general. And there's so many layers to the movie that it really must be experienced by anybody who's a horror fan. I know that this film has a tremendous cult following, and it's a shame, because there was almost a sequel to it. Well, I think it would have been called Strangeland Disciple.
Which, when you name it that way, it sounds like it's going to go off in some weird tangent. I think they should shoot now, because all this stuff in this movie is still relevant today, and I think they could probably continue because I guess if you think about it, 98 was a long time ago, huh?
Yeah,
I don't know. You could figure something out. There could definitely, because you say Disciple, you could do Disciple now, because then it would have to be because G. Snyder's pretty old now, and so
You could actually cast it with somebody picking up where Captain Howdy left off.
Right.
Captain Howdy
But
is
Snyder
dead.
he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. Well, he's dead, but he's become. He
was presumably dead.
Yeah, and then you could say he's become, whether he's dead or not. He's no longer in the picture, but he's become kind of an underground figurehead for maybe a cult that has risen up around him. And I would say that would be really cool.
Badass lead character though.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Keanu Reeves.
Well, what I'm kind of curious is, I wonder if this influenced James Wan with Saw. I'm sitting there just thinking,
wow, dude, you just came out of left field with that one.
No, it just popped in my head, and I was just like, I wonder if this was an influence. Well, Saw coming out like 7 years later, but a lot of it being teaching people a lesson through pain, clarity, on top of it, using technology against. And because we were talking about Strangeland Disciple, then you go to Saw and you have the Jigsaw and all the Jigsaw's apprentices and all this other kind of stuff that kind of go along. So that's how my mind kind of got there. But I was just curious if this movie actually influenced James Wan.
That's interesting because Captain Howdy's purpose was to force spiritual enlightenment on people through his philosophy of pain and the pain of body modification and scarification and branding and stuff like that. And whereas Jigsaw was teaching people to value their lives by putting them in a situation where they would be forced to confront either their death or their survival. And if they died, then they were obviously missing that driving piece that drove them to that point. So it possible. I could definitely see the connection there.
So yeah,
that's cool. I like that.
But it would be.
But
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, but it would really be interesting to see as Strangeland too, because I believe Captain Howdy is a huge underrated horror movie villain, and obviously with his death being spoiler alert at the end of Strangeland, but being able to, even if there's a disciple, being able to revisit Captain Howdy through a disciple would be really interesting to see.
That'd be cool. I think we should rally for it. Audience, let us know what you think. Should there be a sequel to this? If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's worth the time. And it puts a lot of things into perspective, like how old you are, because the internet has progressed so far. Let us know, weekinhorror@gmail.com. Sequel? No?
I would hope one day that there would be.
Yeah, same here.
I think now would be the best time. Or maybe wait to see what the fuck else happens in 2020 and then do it.
Makes me kind of hanker, really, really kind of hanker for Spiral. I'm really curious about that one. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I thought you said Spyro.
I thought you said Spyro.
I'm
Spyro
thinking
the
back
Dragon.
to 98 now. Like, hell yeah,
No,
let's go play some
Spiral.
PS1, bro.
No, Spiral. The from the Book of Saw.
Oh.
With Chris Rock and Sam. It was Chris Rock and Sam Jackson.
Did that come out?
No, not yet.
Okay, I was gonna say, did I miss that one?
Yeah, I'm really, really curious because strangely enough, it turns out that Chris Rock is like a giant Saw fan, and just strangely, and so this, talking about the sequel to a possible sequel to Strangeland, get kind of like offshooting to where someone else picking up where Captain Howdy left off and doing something. Spiral looks to be aiming that direction, although the plot is heavily under wraps. I'm very curious about that. So.
Yeah, because I definitely want to check it out. Now Chris Rock has been getting into some more stuff because he's in that new season of Fargo too.
Yep.
Is he?
Yeah, it looks
awesome.
really good.
Cool. Hey Joe, what do we got? What do we got left, Joe?
All right, our final film for our first episode of season 2. I'm still fucking excited about it. It's awesome. It makes me giddy because we're breaking ground here. It's sweet. Released October 5th, 2012, the horror anthology film VHS.
Dun, dun,
So, this is one of the cool ones. Directed, multiple directors in this one. Adam Wingard, David Bruckner, Ty West, Glenn McQuaid, Joe Swanberg. And written by multiple writers. Simon Barrett, David Bruckner also wrote in this. Nicholas Tukoski, Ty West, Glenn McQuaid, Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, Tyler Gillette, Justin Martinez, and Chad this guy's Spanish name, Chad Villela, I think is how you pronounce that. I apologize if I butchered that one. And starring a host of actors. I couldn't possibly go through all of them. Because
oh my God, no.
There are 6. There are 5 stories and an overarching narrative, a framing narrative for the entire film, and each one has at least like 7 people that star in them. So I can't go through every single one. We'll be here all night. But basically, the framing narrative of VHS, for those who have not seen it, is the police enter into a home and. Basically, or no, I'm thinking of a different one. No, sorry, it's a gang. It's a criminal gang that films their exploits. And they wind up in this house to lay low for a while and discover a kind of treasure trove of VHS tapes, like all over the friggin' place. And while they're hiding out, they kind of bored. They watch these movies, and then the movies they're watching are the stories that play as a part of the narrative. And meanwhile, crazy, creepy shit is going on in the house at the same time. And so each one of the tapes that each one of the individuals of the little gang watches are the ones that we get to see. So like tape 56 is the narrative. And then there's Amateur Night, which actually went on to inspire the movie Siren. Second Honeymoon. Tuesday the 17th, which is a title I think I just love. It's so tongue-in-cheek. The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger. That one was a fucked up one.
That was so fucked up.
That one was fucked up. One of my friends was watching this with me, and when they got to the scene when she's unconscious and her boyfriend has to open her up, and you could see her ribs. Yeah, but my friend was like, no, I'm out. He bounced out of that one. And then 10/31/98 was the last one in that one. But really, really cool stuff in this film. A wild production because the inspiration behind it was just, it was very much just a bunch of filmmakers getting together to kind of do something. This was it had a feel of very 48-hour film festival in that respect, where multiple directors are going out doing their own thing and then coming together in the at the very last bit and trying to put it together into a coherent narrative.
Yeah, so it kind of goes on to like a trust fall style filmmaking, because you had all these directors get together, because usually even in something like this, you would have one director, and the one director would just go through, and even on something like this, they would shoot each tape that they ended up putting in and watching. But this one actually had multiple film directors going out and they're doing their own thing. And you have to kind of trust that the director was going to be able to get their section done the way that it would fit. Because directors have so many different styles and appreciate different aspects of horror and all this other kind of stuff. It's easy to get 2 horror directors that would make something, say, completely different. So they have to actually trust each other that it would flow, even though, okay, hey, we have a script and, this is a section that you're going to do, to get the execution down on it, because the directors are pretty much left like unchecked. It's not like a TV show, where in a TV show you have your showrunners, you have your executive producers, and so you have the director who do the director abilities for that episode, but showrunners are like on top of it. The executive producers are there constantly to make sure it maintains a flow in the overarching story. This was like, okay, here's a script. All right, so Adam Wingard, here you go. David Bruckner, here you go. All right, go, do your thing. And then they would actually go off, shoot their piece, and then come back together. Which, I mean, Adam Wingard doing kind of the overall framing narrative of it, but with David Bruckner and T.I. West, hey, you shoot your thing, come back, and we're just going to take your section and put it into the film with it, which is really unheard of.
Yeah, it's wild. To put the level of money that goes into producing a film, typically you have a lot of hands on the steering wheel to ensure, like the overall budget for VHS, because it was divided into 6 separate productions, is difficult to kind of narrow down, because people spent differing amount, major differing or variable amounts of money. But the box office on it was 1.9 million, and it was considered a success. So, being a found footage anthology, Most likely the costs weren't excessively high, but even in a major motion picture that this is going to be released to theaters, there's typically a lot of hands on deck. You're right. You've got your executive producers, you got your producers, you got the studio itself, you've got the director and the different units that are typically, everyone's got a hand on the wheel in some way to try and make sure everything is flowing ahead. But there was a great amount of trust that was put into these directors who were pretty much, like a 48-hour film festival, given an idea or given a script, and then they go out to do it themselves. And then when you come back, we're just going to use what you shot. And we're going to stick it into this anthology movie, and we're going to have an overarching narrative of the whole thing. And fortunately, it works out really well. It worked out really well because I really enjoyed VHS. My favorite one of it was the Amateur Night. Was the Siren one? Was she really a siren? I always thought she was more of a succubus, but I really really dug that one because the girl who played the succubus in that one was just crazy.
Yeah, creepy.
I thought she was just Lily. She was just fan-fucking-tastic. Oh, when she rips that dude's genitals off, just like that, like it wasn't no thing. Oh, it's fucking crazy. But definitely, this one surprised me because you hear found footage and you hear anthology. Oh, it's a collection of found footage films. And by 2012, found footage had really was really starting to burn out. People were like, another found footage film, another one. But VHS was a bit of a surprise.
So the whole thing, like, you watch these kind of, this is an anthology, but you go back, like, to stuff like, when you think found footage, especially in 2012, being around that time, you've had a lot of, when was Paranormal Activity? I mean, one of them was right around then.
I was thinking the same thing. I think Paranormal Activity came out like 2010, something like that.
I don't know, but there was a bunch of them. So there's definitely probably one right around 2012, and that was another one. And I think
Paranormal Activity was 07.
07, okay.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
That's so weird. So I guess I saw VHS
but the Blair Witch Project,
the
Blair Witch Project was 1999.
Right. And then even before that, like if you want to get like real deep into it, like Faces of Death was like 1978. Oh, yeah. And that's like when I think about like found footage anthology, that's where I started, was that movie, and that's where it's evolved from, for me at least. And so you start there and you move to like the Blair Witch Project and then up to Paranormal Activity, and then you get into VHS, and like it's different because it's like with Paranormal Activity, it's like, okay, it's the story, but like anything outside of the story is still part of the story. With this, it's like you got these others completely different stories, but then like you said, that overarching narrative that's like you're looking at this whole, okay, there's like your main story and then there's all these side quests that you go on, and the whole time it's just like insane. You get pulled in so many different directions with it that it's like, okay, you get into one thing and then it's like, holy shit, that was insane, but then you start another, like, holy shit, that was insane, and it's totally different. It's not following just one story, but it's like and that's where that trustful filmmaking like really worked out for, I mean, it doesn't work out very often, but like it worked out very well in this because it was like they all came together real nice, and you got the one story and they worked very well together. It was super cool. And then like VHS 2 and VHS Viral, like it just went on and on. It was great.
Yeah, agreed. And I know I've said it before, when you do a found footage film, you always have to have a good excuse for the camera being there. Like, that is just right off the bat. If you can't find that, like, you look at movies like Cloverfield, look at movies like, say, Quarantine, and it's like, it's like, well, why don't you just drop the camera and run? The fact that you're able to actually get little pieces, and it's them sitting there watching these little sections and these little snippets going through, it makes more sense. On top of that, so once you're able to buy into the fact that it is a found footage film, then you just treat it like a regular movie, and that's why it works.
Yeah, but even like the found footage part was done very well.
It was done extremely well.
Just with like the way that, because we were at DVD, so you had to go back, and it was like, all right, spooky, these old things from our past. Who would have known that like kids don't even know what they are now? But it was cool being able to, like, I don't know, I like, you can like sit there and believe it, and you can like really get into it, And it's done so well that it's like, wow, this is like believable. I don't know. I thought that was really cool about it.
There was a good sense of realism to it. I dug that. I mean, the effects of every single story were really, really solid. I thought they did an exceptionally good job. At this point in 2012, being so deep into the found footage, at this point, I think it became about finding a new gimmick to try and sell the idea of found footage, and then utilizing the trope of found footage to different effect. I think the anthology idea was really, really smart and was a new way to sell it because nobody had done it to this extent yet. Whereas the Blair Witch Project was pretty much found footage from point A to point B, and then Paranormal Activity was found footage, but it was stationary cameras that were all throughout the house, plus a bit of handheld. Whereas this one is pretty much is handheld throughout, and focuses. I think the narrative, the framing narrative was a smart decision to bring these all together and made it and provided a sense of mystery that you don't often get in a found footage film. So maybe they hit the nail on the head. VHS 2 was really good and was a definite ramp up from VHS 1, but VHS Viral, I think it kind of, as found footage was doing, it kind of burned itself out, which surprised me because there's a freaking reboot announced called VHS 94. And the 94 being like 1994 when the handheld cameras came out en masse and people were able to, the Sony Handycam and stuff like that. And so there's a reboot coming out of VHS, and I honestly don't know. I really don't know, because at this point, 2020, VHS came out 12 years ago. Blair Witch Project came out in, I said it before, 99?
Yeah, 99.
So we're already 20 years, 21 years.
We're already fucking old. Yeah, we get it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, past the Blair Witch Project. I mean, I honestly don't know what to expect. Is it...
I'm just playing the Blair Witch video game right now. I think we talked about that at one point.
It may...
It's 20 years later, though, and it's like, wow, yeah, I'm still interested in this.
It may be a little bit too late, because as technology has progressed, people, the younger generation, they're not going to know VHS. And for us, growing up, VHS was like real. Like a home... It was scary to us because a VHS was typically a home movie, and so it had this real effect, like Alex was saying.
Personal,
effect. It was felt there because it wasn't cinematic. It didn't have the movie look to it. So going back to that again, it may miss a lot of the audience. I think a better way to do it may be like cell phones. Or something like that.
Dude, do you realize that you just described like the perfect horror movie like plot? You just talked about how you had this thing that, it was real to us, but they know nothing about it. Like, that's like a legend. And then you've got these VHS tapes, and somebody walks into a room and they find all these some kid walks into a room and finds all these VHS tapes. Like, what the fuck is this? Bro, no cap. Gangsta G or whatever the fucking kids say nowadays, and they find the VHS player and they're like, yo, this is some old ass shit, and they hook it up and put it in, and then it's like this fucking weird videos, and like, well, what the fuck is this? And I think that would be fucking cool.
That could be interesting.
It's like Jumanji just did like they go down to the basement and find a video game Jumanji, and that's how they get sucked in. But it's like the opposite, like bringing something back. It's like weird. These kids have no fucking idea, and the kids that don't know what VHSs are like older now, and it's scary, but like they're old enough to like go see a horror movie now, and so I think it's perfect timing.
I mean, it could be, because you take, say, somebody who's 18 or 20 isn't going to necessarily have the same connection to VHS as like we do.
Yeah, but they all ask like what it is, so why not a whole movie about it?
And that could work, though.
Informational and terrifying.
It could be. So that brings us to the audience. What do you guys think? VHS Trilogy, been out for a while. Is a reboot even necessary? Has found footage pretty much run its course? I'm 50-50 on the potential of a reboot. What about you guys? What do you think?
I same here. I'm probably about 50-50. I don't know. If they do a reboot, I'll go see it anyway, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
I think they could do it, but they would have to stick to the VHS aspect. Because you couldn't do it like, I mean, phones nowadays film like cinematic cameras do. And so like I think it would have to stick to the VHS thing. I think they should go for it. I vote yes. I think you could go for it. You could use the VHS thing because it's kind of funny because kids really don't know what it is. So like you'll get the older people that are like, yeah, I'll go see it because, you know, it's VHS tapes. And you get the younger people that are like, I mean, my parents talk about VHS tapes. I want to know what this is about. And I think you could hit everybody with a reboot right now. It'd have to be like right now, though.
Interesting. Well, definitely, to the audience, let us know. Let us know in the comments or shoot us an email, weekinhorror@gmail.com, if you think a reboot to the VHS trilogy is really necessary, or if it will even do anything. Maybe it'll be direct to DVD, who knows. But, you know, are you looking forward to it? Are you not? Let us know. We'd like to know. Eugene, we have one birthday this week. Who do we have?
We have one birthday, and it is a huge birthday, too. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Clive Barker, born October 5th, 1952. You're talking about the writer, director of Hellraiser, the original one, the creation of Pinhead himself, also the writer of Nightbreed, Candyman, The Midnight Meat Train, just Lord of Illusions, just epic his influence in horror. I mean,
oh yes, yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I watched Hellraiser, and I was one of the lucky ones. I actually read the book in his was it the book? It was the Hellbound Heart that was a part of his Books of Blood, and that one blew my mind. And obviously, there's a lot of themes in his stories, and especially in his early work, that were a reflection of, you know, being a gay man in Britain in the 70s. Very, very difficult stuff, but it comes out in his works. And, you know, once you're aware of the tribulations of Clive Barker's early formative years, you begin to see the kind of things pop up in Candyman, Lord of Illusions, you know, Hellraiser, all throughout Hellraiser, you know, that whole big thing, you know. But such, I would say, the horror, it seems weird just to say horror, just like, you know, straight horror, you know what I'm talking about? Because it's more than that. But I would say a horror fantasy on the level of Neil Gaiman, but in a much bloodier, twisted, sicker way. You get what I'm saying there?
No, absolutely. Like, and like your Hellraiser and Candyman, they're not just straight horror. There's like so much more behind them, and that's what makes his movies great. Is he always goes so much deeper than just like slasher, or, you know, he's got his own style. Like, I mean, like, you even look at like Gods and Monsters, and like The Plague. Yeah, even the stuff that's like not very well known, it's still like it resonates Barker in a way that nobody else does.
Yeah, because when you watch Hellraiser is not about Pinhead. And
not at all. Not at all.
That's what sets it apart, because when you have Michael, Freddy, it's all about the people trying to overcome them, whereas Hellraiser, it's about people's own ambitions and the lengths that they're willing to go to and what is their desires. And it's about them. And then when they solve the puzzle box and Pinhead comes out, then Pinhead knows this is what you desire. This is why you summoned me. But it's about the people and the relationships between them.
It's about the people, man.
Power to the people. And so you can see, and for those of you who don't know, back around the time that Clive Barker was born, over in Britain persecuted gays. Like, it was always, in the United States, it was something that was kind of shunned and ignored. But
nobody wanted to talk about it. Yeah, it was the dirty little secret.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing was like, well, you just hope that somebody isn't part of that group or anything like that. Whereas in Britain would actually arrest people for homosexuality and jail them and force them to take hormones. Even Alan Turing, who basically invented the modern computer, when his home and saved Britain in World War II came out that he was homosexual, forced him to take hormones, and he died in 1954 because of it. So you can see a lot of like the repression and a lot of the inner conflict with Clive Barker's writings that come out because of that.
Yeah, it's the deep expression of being one thing and then appearing as something else on the outside. Is through all of his works. The real person is hidden by something on the exterior, and the forces and basically the kind of internal forces that can ultimately destroy you. Because that, and it's always been my take. It's always been my understanding that the Cenobites, in his Hellraisers or the Hellbound Heart, were the kind of like the personification of those forces coming to destroy you because you do not deal with them. You're kind of obsessed with them. You want them. You engage with them, but you usually do it in secret, kind of like people dealing with the puzzle box, because it's usually a solitary ritual that people go through, and very, I would say, masturbatory in that respect. And then all of a sudden the Cenobites come out and start, you kind of get what you were looking for, and it's everything that was within you that you denied, everything that you repressed, kind of exploding out and tearing you apart. And, in his films, in a very literal sense. But an incredible vision. I would say visionary. Stephen King once said that he was the future of horror, and he really did bring a level that I thought few people were able to as far as the horror community goes, with the work that he did. You could see the influence, because he was raised by his father was his mother was a painter, and you could see the artistic influence of his youth in there. But there was some really, really dark stuff that he went through when he was coming up. You could see these influences coming through, just very much the darker side of the world in that respect. And I sympathize with the pain that he obviously felt, but he has channeled it into some of the most compelling and terrifying shit I've seen in horror.
And definitely, in the fact that he's able to hit a level of horror that not a lot of writers can do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about like the Cenobites. The Cenobites have so much depth to them. Even the Hellbound, the second one, where they end up fighting the person who summons them, and then you see the Cenobites for who they really are. Once they're killed, you're able to see who, and one of them's like a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Just adding that level of depth to it is what makes Clive Barker stand out.
I tell you, I'm seriously looking forward to the series that HBO is developing. They announced that in April of this year. With that, because Clive Barker went through some serious legal stuff and eventually won out and got the rights back to the Hellbound Heart and the first Hellraiser film. And I'm really looking forward to what, HBO has been churning out some fantastic content as of late. Watchmen was absolutely fantastic. But it's HBO. They've got that HBO money. And with that kind of force and HBO's willingness to allow directors and creators they allow them the freedom to really express themselves in their projects. I'm really looking forward to, Clive Barker returning to the helm of Hellraiser, especially in episodic format. This should be really, really interesting. Love everything he's done, and I really, really hope, especially you guys, I heard that David Gordon Green and is directing several episodes. David Gordon Green is people should recognize him in the horror community, and of course, being produced by Danny McBride and other individuals. The people behind the new Halloween reboot. Really, really smart stuff. So I'm seriously looking forward to that. And given that he's one of our favorites, we wanted to wish him a big happy birthday. So happy birthday to Clive Barker.
Happy birthday, Clive.
Happy birthday, Clive. Looking forward to your next works.
I know too. We got Nightbreed TV series, possibly Hellraiser in pre-production, and then a Candyman also coming out.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
yeah, so we have good stuff that's coming out though. So it's definitely stuff we're looking forward to. So all right, well that concludes another episode of Weekend Horror. Thank you so much for listening. We could not do this show without you. If you want more information, definitely check out our website, weekendhorror.net. And all you have to do is go in, enter your email address, and it automatically puts you in the drawing for a mystery shirt that's given out every month. And all you have to do is sign up one time, and it puts you in for infinity. So you get a chance to win a shirt every single month off of one time. It's amazing. So definitely go to weekendhorror.net. Check that out. Also, we are always looking for feedbacks, comments, questions. You can email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com. When this goes up on YouTube, go ahead and comment below. We do read those comments and we do respond to them. And if you like what we're doing here, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/weekendhorror. That gives you early access to our bloodbath, where we use our horror expertise and we take two horror icons and put them in a fight to the death to see who would come out on top, who would win between the Blob and the Thing. Check out our bloodbath to see. We recently did it was Ash versus Leatherface. So go sign up on our Patreon to see who would win that. Also, on top of that, we have our monthly guest, and we like to sit down and chat with them, which we call our Weekend Horror After Dark. We sit and chat, and we just chat about the state of horror films and the horror genre as a whole. Things that they have done to influence it, and where basically the direction horror is going to go. So definitely check out our Patreon, get early access to that, and then check out our Facebook and our Twitter, both Facebook Weekend Horror, Twitter at Weekend Horror, to get a daily splatter, to daily dose of horror knowledge every single day. And then we have going on for the last couple of months, we have our YouTube channels up. So go ahead, stab that subscribe button over on YouTube. It's another outlet that you can go and listen to our podcast. You can check out the comments below, and it's another way that you can interact with us because we do read those. And then, if you want to go ahead and maybe get a little bit of swag going, check out our Teespring. We have merch set up. Teespring over Weekend Horror. We have a t-shirt. We have a mug. We have stickers. That way you can get your Weekend Horror swag and help support what we do, because we greatly appreciate all the support that we have. We have just started season 2, and we would not have made it without our listeners. So thank you so much. And I'm Eugene.
I'm Alex.
I'm JL.
And we'll see you next week. And as always, stay scared.